Welcome to the No Cap Table podcast, where we discuss business, entrepreneurship, and the startup lifestyle. I am your co-founder, Omari.
And I'm Robert Foster.
Yo, Rob, check this out, man. This is the first of its kind today. Look, we got a special guest on the show, straight from Durham, North Carolina, the Bull City. Arguably one of the best hip-hop groups to come out of North Carolina. Little brother, yep.
Okay.
Mentor, Techstars mentor. Been a part of some great exits. Duke alumni. Let's say Duke alumni.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Duke alumni.
I didn't know we had a Blue Devil in here.
We sure do. Now, I gave him a white sweatshirt, but the only thing I ever see him wear is all black. None other than Charles Robinson, managing partner, 1888 Ventures. Charles Robinson is in the building.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. I'm excited, man. I hit up Omari, man. I was just like, man, I want to come in and talk with you guys. So I love what you guys are doing and appreciate you.
Let's get it.
Well, Charles, the first way we like to start off our show is, how did you move the needle last week for your business?
I'm a relationship first guy. So when it comes to moving the needle, my big piece is establishing the relationships at a deeper level with the ones that I have existing, and then creating new ones. So as I continue to build those relationships, during Atlanta Tech Week is when I hit you up. So I think I moved the needle that way too, and seeing you on the rooftop, and we got some interactions that way. So I would say I moved the needle on the relationship side and just continuing to build with my friends and building some cool stuff.
Rob, you are not off the hook, man. Yo, Tell them how you move the needle. Let's go.
All right, so Shotmakers League 2.0 has went live.
Let's go.
Yeah. So we went live, and it's been a long time coming, man. Long time coming. A lot of changes in what I was gonna do and how I was gonna approach it, but we live, and now the work actually starts.
Yeah. Well, it's been starting, like the vision that you had overall. I could see, like, from the time that I've known you, how it shifted. And not even that it's a pivot.
Yeah.
It's just shifted toward different areas and arenas. And you never, like, really got outside of what you was attempting to do. And so congratulations, Shotmakers League. Go to shopmakersleague.com, create a profile, challenge any one of your friends.
Challenge any one of your friends, put a little money on it.
Come on now. Put a little money on that
Put
thing.
something on it.
Yeah.
Put a little something on it.
Let's go. Ooh,
what you do, Mark?
How'd you move the needle, bro?
How did I move the needle last week? Well, finally, we got a partnership agreement with Fulton County Schools. Shout out to Roswell High School. So, again, going back to what Rob has shifted, our big shiny thing was the airport. But my goal is to continue to get traction in some shape, form, fashion. I'm not saying that the airport is completely off the table, but at the same time, I continue to just want to get traction, want to make a little bit of money, and provide services for an underserved community of teachers and faculty inside the city of Atlanta, everywhere. So that's how I moved the needle.
Let's go.
Charles Robinson, managing partner of 1888 Ventures.
Yes, sir.
Hold on. How does one become managing partner of a venture? Now, do we call it a venture firm or venture company? Like, what's the terminology here?
Just a firm.
Venture firm.
Yeah, venture firm. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm unorthodox in any way.
Yeah.
It's like, we got a vehicle that gives money to companies, and we try to make money for our investors. That's really how I look at it. So, so how you get, you can do it multiple ways. You can be on a track where you start as an analyst.
Hold on. No. How did you?
I built this. So, I'm going to give myself the title with some of my friends, and that's how I became the managing partner with 1888. But it didn't start there. There was just a long list of things that got me from to here that started way back when.
Now, you on a no cap table.
Yeah.
It means bringing no cap
yes, sir.
To the table.
Yes, sir.
So I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a while, and really talking with you and hearing you share your journey. Like, Durham, North Carolina, man, how did you get started into this whole thing of entrepreneurship?
Well, shoot, man. Well, first, I'm originally from Sarasota, Florida. Okay. Shout out to my Floridians. I know we get a bad rap for being crazy, but
sometimes
just a little bit. But went to school at Duke, and that's where Durham is, and met my wife there, and initially started out in banking, worked there for about a year and 10 months and hated it. absolutely hated it. And it was during the crash, so like everybody was getting their ass kicked and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, after I left, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I bounced around a little bit. I tried things from development, which is like major gifts. I worked at a tech startup called V-Strader. Got fired from there because I was like number 2 and didn't know what I was doing. And then one of my boys, this goes back to the relationship piece, one of my close friends and brothers, Zach Maritas, hit me up about starting up Teamworks. So that's where I kind of got my first hit at a startup, and it definitely didn't start out like what it is today, right? Because like I think 6 weeks ago, Teamworks closed Series E, $65 million at almost a $500 million valuation. But
Goodness.
yeah, man, it's crazy when you think about it, because it's like going into it, you know, we're in an office space trying to get football teams just to sign up for a free trial. It started there and continued to build that out. And then around like 2016, I left Teamworks operationally to start my second company called Forward Cities. In Forward Cities, we just built startup ecosystems throughout the country. So we work with organizations like Kauffman, RK Mellon, Hillman. These are foundations that are in these different cities that have other cities that they focus on. So we were all over the country. So got to Forward Cities. You know, I was stuck with this fork in the road, because after you build a startup ecosystem, the next question most people ask is the check. You know what I mean? Because there's one thing is like, all right, we talking ecosystem, but nobody is really writing those checks. And you know too much about all this stuff, right? All y'all know what I'm talking about, being in the ecosystem itself. So one of the things that I started to ask, and Kauffman was also asking the question, is like, how do we invest in investment backable businesses? So I got a chance to talk to a lot of angel investors, VCs, and ask a lot of questions in regards to that as well. And, you know, for me, I thought of this stream. You have the folks who have the capital, then you have like the ecosystem builders from accelerators, tech spaces, co-working spaces, ecosystem builders who are like giving technical assistance and things like that. And then you have the community of entrepreneurs who are looking for those resources. And that's that thing that rolls downstream. So that fork in the road, I could have either taken those resources from these really wealthy people, brokered that set of resources to create these strategic interventions, and then give it to the community. And I figured that set of capital had certain types of strings attached. So I decided for myself, I just wanted to be the person writing those checks for many reasons. One, with we doing on No Cap, like I wanted to be able to create wealth for my family. And I wanted to be the change that I saw within a lot of these communities where people were talking about like, hey, like these things are not equal for us, and we're not getting the opportunities to do the things that we see other people doing. So I was like, all right, bet. Like I've been given a lot of opportunities, and I had a lot of success, and I was good at what I did. So I stepped out there and joined the investor side. So initially, I didn't start in venture capital. I initially and still in commercial real estate. So initially started in that, and I was just an angel investor. And an angel investor, for those that are listening, is just an investor that writes smaller checks individually. And a lot of times I want to demystify for a lot of the folks what I mean by small checks. You can write checks as small as $1,000. I mean, as long as you're an accredited investor, and what that means in a nutshell is you have at least a minimum of $1 million net worth, and that's not that difficult. You can go get a loan for a building for $1 million and technically be that. Or you can make it $200,000 for over 2 years and still be considered an accredited investor. And then the last part is you could be knowledgeable investor. So you can get a certification, which will allow you to invest either institutional capital or your own individual capital. So those are the 3 ways you could be an accredited investor. And like I said before, you can write checks as small as $1,000. So initially started out as an angel investor, got early into investments like Canva and Natellis. And then eventually I was an LP in a few of my friends' smaller funds, and decided around like the end of 2021, 2022 to focus on the fund side. So initially just was syndicating deals.
Got to stop you right there. You said a name. So Canva.
Yeah.
You were an initial investor in Canva.
Correct.
Wow.
When Canva came across the email, what was it like then? Was it anywhere remotely close to the version we see now, or was it, you know?
I didn't know who the hell Canva was. I only did it because it was one of my boys, Neil Strauss. He had got it. He's really good friends with a guy named Tim Ferriss, who at the time
Oh yeah,
Yeah, okay.
24-hour work week or 4-hour work week.
Yeah, I hope it's not a
Right.
24-hour work week.
Yeah. 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of people know him from his books, 4-hour work week. But Neil had got an allocation, and what that means in a nutshell, you get a piece of the pie you can invest in, and he was grabbing a few friends to jump in it. So literally, he sent me the text, and I looked at it, and just because it was Tim Ferriss, I was like, yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they are, so I just asked my wife. I'm like, "Yo, do you know who Canva? What does Canva do?" And she's like, "Oh, they do this, that, and third." And at the time, I thought they were just like another Wix, and I didn't really think anything of it. Didn't put any due diligence in it. I just what they call coattail invest,
Yeah.
and I just wrote a check just because I could, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how it happened.
Hey man, it's good to be in the right rooms, right?
It's relationships, man. I'm
That's what it
telling you.
is.
I'm trying to
boils
tell you,
down to
man.
it.
Some people have different stories. I'm definitely the byproduct of amazing relationships with amazing people. So definitely that's how I got into Canva.
I think most people are, man. I think just some people don't recognize it. They don't give it as much credit. I think I always, man, and I mean the audience knows too. I always talk people. It's all about people.
It's always about people,
Yeah.
man. And the reality is, once you understand the resources that you have, like it's just a matter of closing that gap from the degrees of separation and how big you want to go. Now, I will say there are like 3 tiers when it comes to executing on anything that you want to execute. There's the knowledge gap, there's the network gap or access to network, and then there's the last part is the access to capital, right? And then each level, you go through that same iteration again, knowledge gap, network gap, capital gap, and you just keep climbing that ladder in the same tranche. And those are the things that I think, what you guys are able to accomplish and being so, I consider you guys like alchemists. Like no matter what you guys touch, it does well. You guys know, like in those 3 things, at what stage you guys are at, and you just got to fight through those different things, going back and forth between 1, 2, and 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that's one thing. The follow-up is the major thing. The follow-up in those relationships are the major thing. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. Question.
Yeah.
So I hear different time periods in the follow-up though, to continue a relationship or build a relationship. I hear 48 hours is the standard time. What you think?
I think it's an art, not a science. At the end of the day, everybody knows people who got the sauce. And what I mean by that is that, like, when you are building relationships with people, you're either the guy that people want to spend time with and genuinely are curious about trying to add value. You're curious about that person that you're talking to individually. Like, you really want to build a deep-rooted relationship. And there's no confusion that you are curious about that relationship. I will say, whether it's 48 hours or 7 hours or immediately after, I'll meet somebody and later that day I'm texting like, yo, bro.
Facts.
Like, for example, one of my buddies, he's with Truist Ventures. We went to this thing and I was like, man, we could grab coffee or we could just skip past the coffee and just grab drinks. And he was like, you know what? Let's just grab drinks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that could work for a person that's SVP at Truist Ventures. That same thing, the COO for Inspire Brands, it's a very similar situation. You know what I mean? No matter what level you are in life, socioeconomic status, the one thing that's universal is connection. So when people try to put a science on it, they're just trying to sell books. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very simple. It's like connection, connection, connection. At the end of the day, there's a couple of things that happen that you have to do that's like sub bullet points for connection. And the one thing that I think of is, 1, executing and being a person of your word. So if you say you're going to do something, you absolutely got to do it.
Yeah.
2, when it comes to like the follow-up, is genuinely trying to figure out how do you add value to that person first.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more someone is going to end the interactions over time. That's the last part, because you still got to have those interactions. That's the part that I would say is more of a science. It's like the interactions over time. And you keep doing that over a period of time, you have a set of long-lasting relationships. And like I said before, the reason why I feel like I'm more successful in my latter years, even though I have some, things that people look at and say, oh, this was built over a period of time. but you're seeing the success now is because I've had relationships that were built over years and years of time. So,
you know, James from EY, like he said something in one of the capital conversations we had, touch points. He talked about touch points, right? And how enterprise sale usually takes about 100 touch points. And he was like, sometimes building a relationship is 100 touch points. Sometimes, I mean, branding, people talk about how your brand takes 5 years to develop a real brand.
Yeah.
That's a lot of touch points.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, the science is, well, okay, one touch point might be I ran into you at an event. Next touch point might be that next morning you saw me on your LinkedIn feed. And then another touch point might be later that week, you got one of my newsletters giving you an update on Shopmakers League.
Yeah.
And then the next touch point might be you was driving in the car and then you heard something on the radio and then you was like, oh, Shopmakers League again.
Yeah.
Now you're creating this whole, I forget what they call it in marketing, but you got this whole sphere of orbit where now that person is, now you said, like you said, curious.
Yeah.
And they like, man, you know what? Let me hit up Rob. Let me hit up Amari, man. Let's see what he got going on.
Yeah, man. And I will say, to be clear too, is like not all touch points are created equal. Well, there are certain things that at the times that I spent with where it's like those points where it's like radical honesty and going in the trenches and not getting caught up in the honeymoon phase of just meeting somebody where it's like, oh man, like I'll just text, oh like, man, I just want, like he popped in my head like, man, I want to come on your podcast, man. I just want to talk. Because the thing is, this is a form of like touch points. And like, those are the things where I think like you were naming a lot of touch points, but there's some touch points that could be worth 10, 20, 30 touch points. And you can get to that 100 in 2 meetings.
Quick.
You know what I mean? Like you have a sit down and have drinks and talking about life and like, you know, your why and all of that stuff. Like those, like when you really get deep rooted and start to get those, like the fabrics of those connections really deep rooted and tight, man, like those 100 touch points that you're talking about definitely can happen. Now, I'll do mine through competition first. Like, if I don't know you, I'll probably do it like somebody talk something like basketball or like chess or something like that. And then we'll get like a first interaction that way. Or I'll see somebody in business and they'll hit me up through LinkedIn. But they do have a lot of those like small, quick connections where I'm like, yo, like this person is not going away. Like, let me figure out what's going on with it.
Oh, yeah. Was it Ben Chestnut? Ben Chestnut was like the secret to his success was the fact that he just outlasted his competitors.
Oh, yes. That is the golden rule. Like, if you're going to do anything, and one of my friends, he is in wealth management. He literally said that. And he said, the ultimate game is you got to get started and get to the point where you can get in the game. Once you're really in the game, you just outlast everybody else. That's what we did at Teamworks. The company that we purchased through that recent raise was once a competitor of ours. The irony of all of that, right? I've said this before, is that in business, it's not complex. It's difficult. And the reason why it's difficult is because there are a set of things that you have to accomplish over and over and over and over and over, as Marshawn Lynch would say. And at the end of the day, some people just not going to be able to take that because you're not going nowhere. You're going to apply that pressure every single day. And that's the thing. It's like, I said this also, is just like, it's very much a spiritual journey internally, like a one-on-one. It's like most of the time before you start seeing the kinks in the armor on the business side, it's already happened internally with the founder. It's like that moment when they felt down, but they didn't have that accountability structure or that group build them up. And then they stay there for too long and things start to pile up. And then eventually you start to see those things like manifest itself in an outward appearance in your business. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's true.
You've been a part of some different acquisitions.
Correct.
How does one set themselves up? How does that even look in a startup world?
Once you get beyond just the technical piece, everybody has the technical expertise, right? Everyone knows how to do sales. Everyone knows how to program their app. Everyone knows how to optimize their app. Everyone knows what the burn rate is, at what point does the customer leave, all that stuff. It really boils down to relationships. So I would say how you get there is over time, you're having conversations with these folks. You're seeing them at conferences. You're seeing them on the news. One of the companies actually went to school with us at Duke. So it's really a matter of just looking at it and dreaming big. And I'm a big proponent of, if you can dream big, the money is always going to be there. Because I say this as well, is that one, money is important, but money isn't real. It's a social construct. You guys have been able to build something with very little capital that you would have to create something that I would consider like enterprise level platform, right? So the three ways that you can move any type of community, I say all the time, is either through influence, through capital, or violence. And what I mean by violence is resistance. That's another way of saying it. So anyways, going back to your question, is just relationships. We met a few people. We had the idea that we would be able to grow our valuation by acquiring our revenue versus going after those customers. And that's when you start to think like, oh, well, you want to go up another 2 million in revenue, let's just buy it. You want to go up another 15 million in revenue, just buy it. And then you just got to figure out ways to negotiate where you're buying a $10 million company at 8 million or a $30 million company at 17. And then eventually you begin to attract the investors that automatically look at it and say, 1 + 1 = 5 in this situation. You know what I mean? And then you just reverse engineer from there. So that's really how it boils down to it. And it's really simple. But the difficult part is the time to build those relationships. That's the thing that's difficult.
Gotcha. Now, I want to go back a little bit and break down valuations. How do you value a startup company?
So there are multiple ways that valuations come about. I mean, some people have third parties that do valuations, but for me as an investor, the first stage I look at is multiples on revenue. But that's if the company has revenue. If the company doesn't have revenue, you look at team, you look at market size, you look at traction, and then you just look at their ability to execute with the combination of those two. So from there, you begin to make that educated guess. But the reality is the emphasis is on guess. For these founders that are listening, it really is a matter of you being able to transfer confidence, cutting out absolutely every hurdle that you can possibly cut out, where the only hurdle that's left is money. If you can do that, you will always win. And what I mean by, and the reason why I said always versus sometimes, is because you have to get in front of as many people as God-given possible. There is no limitation. If you got to get a flight, you ask for some credit card debt, like you got to figure it out. If you solve that problem, like I said, you need to solve it and get in front of absolutely everyone you could possibly get into and not just limit yourself to your own geography, you will be able to accomplish whatever it is you need to accomplish.
Jules.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So when you talk team, how does that affect? Because what I've noticed, I mean, I'm one myself, a solo founder.
Yeah.
But in Atlanta, and especially, I feel like in our community as a black man, I feel like there's a lot of solo founders in our community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what should a solo founder think that they need to do to prop themselves in the right position to be invested?
Absolutely. I mean, one, they have to look at the industry they're in, right? If they're in food and beverage and they're a solo founder, the issue that an investor will look at is scale, right? Because you can only produce a maximum amount of meals as a solo founder. That's food and beverage. Tech, it's a little different. If you are the tech person who's building the platform, there's a certain amount of economies of scale that you can get to. But the question is, how are you going to sell it? And if you have those skill sets. So that's a very big and broad question. There's so many avenues you can go down. I will say is that even if you're a solo entrepreneur, does not mean that you can't get the job done. It goes back to those three things I said before: influence, capital, or resistance. You have to influence enough people to back you with the set of skills that you need to get it across the finish line. So for you, you could still be a solo entrepreneur and say, hey, I got a team of 15, I got this guy who's in the NBA who's dropping down content. I got this person who's using this. I'm on the radio. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And if the market is big enough and you've been able to find out what that market is by yourself, being able to penetrate that market by yourself, and none of this actually is by yourself, but you know what I'm saying? Like you being the face of it.
Yeah.
I think that will be beneficial. Now, the hard part about it is when an investor looks at it is you have God-given superpowers. And with those God-given superpowers, you're able to create certain things. At the same time, you also have blind spots. Now, with all your superpowers, you're trying to do this over here, but you also got to work on your blind spots. But I'm not going to sit here and tell Steph Curry to go in the post. I'm like, nah, drop them threes, bro, from half court, everything else. But the moment I see Steph Curry in the post trying to grab it, I think there's a problem. It's not a problem with Steph Curry. It's because he doesn't have the team around him to help him be his best self. So that's really what it boils down to when it comes to a solo entrepreneur, is that you can see the God-given talent. You can see the tool is good, but then you also see, like, long-term that this is going to be a problem. And again, I want to be very clear. Venture capital dollars is not for everyone. And I know it got hype. I know they got a lot of hype because of Shark Tank and a lot of people raising money because of the 2020 and 2021 years. Like, it was raining men, I'm telling you. Like, it was crazy, like, how much money was flowing. So I think that shift got people in hustle mode, like going to grab the bag, which I respect you for doing that. Go grab that bag in 2023 unapologetically. We all going for that bag. I will say, though, with that being said, you got to be mindful of the fact that venture capital, they're looking for outsized returns. And if you don't have a roadmap and a game plan for making those outside returns, if you're not willing to put yourself in a pressure/stressful situation to put yourself going towards those outside returns, I highly recommend you do not go for venture capital dollars. Because especially early on, if you can't figure out that traction and that leverage, you're going to lose a lot more than you gain. And long run, it's going to be one, like I said before, that one-on-one, that internal piece that you're talking about, it's going to just suck the life out of you. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, because I am a venture capitalist and I want to find founders that are like excellent and crushing it and have the team that they need and all that great stuff and market fit. Great. But for the solo entrepreneurs who say, I need venture capital, maybe you don't need venture capital. Maybe you just need to tighten up on your plan. 9 times out of 10, the solo entrepreneurs I talk to, they don't have a grasp on their finances because they're just running so much. But I tell them all the time, if you can get real tight on your finances and not worry about how much money you're making, because the reality is it's not all about your MRR, I'm using lingo, your monthly amount of income that you're getting, not about your annual amount of income that you're getting revenue-wise for your business. It really boils down to, I want to see how the sausages are made. I want to see like the mechanics of all of the different things that's going on in your business. And if you can run through with me the engine of your business, yeah, I'll put gas in the tank because I know it's going to get you from point A to point B. And that's the thing that most entrepreneurs, not just solo entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs miss, is that they get caught up on the innovation, the industry, the changing the narrative and the new tech and new. But the reality is simplicity is key. And the other piece as well, a lot of venture capitalists don't know a lot about finance either. And they're not really trying to get in all of this like extra stuff. They just want to know, if I give you $20 in the register,
money back.
When do I get my $20 back? And how much am I getting back over a period of time? And if you make that simple and solve all the other pieces of the problem, where you can say, all I need is the $20, and obviously we'll have economies of scale on whatever number you're trying to raise, you're going to raise a lot of money and you're going to make a lot of your investors happy.
They say 95% of startups fail within the first couple of years.
Yeah, I think it was like 80% fail in the first year, and then 90-something% after 2 years, and it's like 98% within 5 years.
Yeah. So how do we take these new innovative ideas? What are they, just too early, or is it too late? What have you seen in your experience
for them to beat that number?
To beat that number, yeah.
It's resilience, man. Like I said, it's not a situation that they failed because they weren't innovative enough.
Or no capital.
Or no, I mean, no capital, that's part of it. But most companies die from indigestion, not starvation.
Come on.
And I'm going to be clear about what I mean by that. So what happens is companies will have a plan and they'll start to make money with that plan. But because they were successful, and most founders who are visionaries have ADD. I haven't met like a founder yet who doesn't have like some form of ADD who's like bouncing all over the place. But that's the reason, that's part of their superpower and why they are successful at what they do, is because they think differently than everyone else. Whereas everyone is like one track minded, 9 to 5. I got my 4 weeks vacation and then I get my check at the end of the year after I file my taxes. That's different for this side of the coin, the entrepreneurs. So the indigestion piece is you go down this path and then all of a sudden you grab this, you grab this, you grab this, and now you start to stack up, and then eventually you can't handle the pressure and you think, I need more capital to solve this problem because I've stacked up. So it's kind of like, I need some heartburn medicine to get rid of this stuff that I just ate. And like, no, you need to just fast a little bit, cut down, get back to the core, and you will survive. So that's the thing I think most entrepreneurs got to understand, is that, and I'm going to say that again, is that most entrepreneurs fail because of indigestion, not starvation.
That's a great explanation. Okay, so I'm pulling out another piece. You said we would focus, and I'm saying we because we're all founders. Like, we would focus on like these different shiny things, and even relating it to our business. At one point, I was focused on getting an investment, getting capital, getting an angel investor, but then actually just going through this entire process, even talking to you, focused on customers and sales and revenue. So for companies like that, what would you say to those founders that has that indigestion, that need to trim that fat to get to where they need to go?
Well, one, I'll say I'm proud of you for making that pivot, because it's a difficult pivot, mostly because, like I said before, it goes back to that one-on-one. It's like sometimes your ego get in the way, like, nah, I've been on this track, man. I'm going to get this bag. And I'm like, wait, I'm going to take a step back and go get this customers. And I think being able to make that shift, but there's a couple things I want to point out. One, you got to make that grocery money, right?
Gotcha.
And we're in this generation, and I'm part of it, where we care more about the announcement than the execution. And most of the time, we want to say, oh, we got this new partnership and we got this, but the partnership don't bring any money. It's taking money away from you. They're actually asking more of you than what you actually can provide. But you got the chance to get this like flash and glamour, or you get in a newspaper or an article on TechCrunch or whatever, and that brings you attention, but you didn't execute on the things that was necessary for you to capture that attention. So now when people come, it actually is the opposite effect, because now they're like, wait, this is not matching up to my expectations. So I say that to the founders that we're talking about, is you got to get to the grocery money. And what I mean by the grocery money is you got to be able to pay the bills. Ensure that you can pay the bills first. It doesn't matter if it's not glamorous. Make sure you can pay the bills. And if you can't pay the bills, cut down on as much as you possibly can to get to the basics. I don't care what people think, because people are going to try and say, oh, you're just a hobbyist and you're just trying to do this. Like, even if you got to get a job and do this business to get to where you need to get to, do it, because that's what's going to allow you to survive more than anyone else. We talked about that 98%. The 98% fail because of their egos getting in the way. They know the solution to the problem. They just don't. That's why I said it's not complex. It's difficult. Most of the time, we know the solution to the problem. We know we need to pivot, but because we spent so much time on the app, we're like, nah, we going to make this work.
Make this happen.
We going to make this work. And you know it don't work.
But
you're like, we going to force it anyways. But I say that to say it's like, when you release those expectations and you go internal, and like I said before, I know I sound more like philosophy, but that's just how I move when it comes to business. And like, I have the track record to prove it. Really what it boils down to is going internal and just doing that inner work to say, all right, I need to release this, and then focus on getting to the money first. And once I get to the money, I'm cutting my expenses. I'm doing this. I got this down. I got this. Like, you're going to have to spend that type of time to sacrifice, because we talked about this earlier. It takes about 7 years to be an overnight success. And a lot of people don't recognize that.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
It takes about 7 years to become an overnight success. A lot of times we just see people flashing up in the lights and things like that. And like even now, like more people, you've seen me out for a long time. More publicly, more people have seen me doing this stuff. But like I've been doing this for a long time. When they see it, they think like there's just this magic bullet or something creative or innovative. And they're just like, man, how did you guys do it? Like we read about this in a case study in our business school. Man, we had a whiteboard with some sticky notes, the customers we want.
Yeah.
And literally we just called the football team to North Carolina and then went through here. And then Ford City, same thing. We put this stuff together and we just called up some people and just leveraged the relationships.
Yeah.
So again, I want to make sure I emphasize, because I really want you entrepreneurs to get this, because I really want, especially the ones in the Atlanta ecosystem, is you got to understand you don't need the next $2 million or $3 million. You just need to cut down on what you have first. You cut down on that and then try to figure out what is your minimum viable product that's going to make the money. If you're already making money, you probably already know what those things are, and focus on those things until you can get to economies of scale where you can gradually grow. Now, if you have something and you truly believe that this is a multi-billion-dollar business, by all means, go for the capital and invest and hit me up. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to take a look at that. But a lot of times you got to have the infrastructure and you got to have a lot of the team. There's so many pieces that you want to have. And if you're not ready for that, that's where the indigestion comes from.
Oh, man, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the conversations I had with you, you had gave me this formula.
Yeah.
And I couldn't answer that question. I mean, straight up, I couldn't answer that question because, again, focused on the big shiny object and being married to the idea of being there was hard to separate from. But then when you think about, all right, well, either you're going to go get a job or you're going to figure out what the next low-hanging fruit is that you can capitalize and implement in your business. Like, he deals with numbers. If you can't provide that equation to get that capital to send a child, don't even do it.
Yeah.
So you gotta have those numbers.
I like what you said earlier about the engine.
And another lingo, I want to drop this because a lot of founders are going to see this on YouTube and I empathize with them. It's called flywheel. You're going to hear that a lot. And it's like, oh, what's your flywheel? That's like the lingo for what he's talking about, which is that engine. It's like, I make money here at this point, and then I do this. Then I make money again, and then this. And once you figure that out, that's the way you make money.
So for me, I guess the reason I always feel confident in like what I know I'm doing and why I know I have sticking power, until I prove myself that completely wrong, that hey, this flywheel does not work. There's just nothing here.
Yeah.
Right? Now, when I've made money, and I mean I have made money, but once I've mastered that and it's coming over and over and over and over again, like you said, you have to get that ego out of the way. Take a job.
Boom.
You got bills to pay. Be fractional on your own.
Say that one more time, man. Please tell them again.
You got to make money.
And then what do they need to do if
Get
they
a job?
Get a job.
Get a
Like
job.
it's okay. It is not crushing your dreams.
Oh no,
it's
I currently drive Lyft.
See what I'm
You
saying?
will see me at ATV for 6 hours. I'll be lifting for another 6.
And listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna be a part of that 2% that survive, because the reality is the ones that are willing to do any and everything to ensure that they do not get off of that Ferris wheel are going to be the ones that survive, because you're gonna outlast everyone else.
To me, it ain't even out. It's an easy thing for me, right?
Yeah.
Like I believe my company is a $1 billion company.
Yeah.
How much would you invest to make $1 billion?
I mean,
What's the most you would put in if you knew, like if you were so confident you were going to make $1 billion?
And I did see a clip where you said you got to invest in yourself first.
yeah. I mean, that's the main thing. Like, you invest in yourself. I mean, but there is no dollar amount, right? I mean,
But that's what I'm saying. So that's why it's like me
outside of my
working-
kids, like
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can't have the kids, man.
you know, but the thing is, let me. I know we said a lot of things with the money part, and this is again for our audience. Money is not real, y'all. Like, it is a game. The moment you shift your brain to understand that money is a game, like, that's when you really become outside of the matrix and you see all the green and all of the stuff that's happening. And what I mean by that is, however you get capital, there's multiple ways you can get capital. You can get capital to a job, you can get capital raising money, or you can get capital by lowering your expenses. Once you understand that you're just playing this game, that what goes out you can get to come in and all these things with influence or resistance, like things become that much more easier for you to solve the problem. Then it's just a matter of saying, how big do I want to go in this game? Yeah. And then once you name what that thing is and say, I want to go this big in this game, now it's just a matter of reverse engineering that and say, what type of relationships do I need to get in those rooms to make that happen? And then how long can I stay on this Ferris wheel and survive, because it costs money?
Yeah.
Shoot, like me flying out to these different places to raise capital, I'm in the same boat y'all in. But once you reverse engineer, it's just a matter of you saying, what is it that I absolutely need to get me from here to here, and how long can I survive? Because I'm going to be knocked down. I'm going to have my moments. And then I'm going to have my moments where I'm blitzing, you know what I mean, going after it. And I'm the moments where I'm absolutely need some friends to open up some doors for me. And that's where you got to be able to just like get to that point. So commend you on doing that, man, 100%.
Entrepreneur raising money, founder raising money, opposed to a VC raising money. How does that look?
Man, it's so similar, it's crazy. And the thing is, because I'm both a founder and a VC now, like I know it on many fronts. One, going in as a solo GP, I still have my partners who are part of it. But one of the things that people do, they look at you kind of like a solo entrepreneur. What type of track record do you bring to the table? Maybe you don't have enough track record when you know you got track record, right? So the thing is a question of like, where do I go? Because a lot of times the natural thing for me to do, and this is just me speaking with no cap, is like, I was like, oh man, like my relationships, I'm gonna go institution and foundations because of what I built. But as I started to go to institutions, they looking at me sideways like, do you got the things? Kind of like how VCs will look at you, right? Kind of, you know, the questions I be asking you and stuff that we have, they asking me those same questions. And I'm sitting here frustrated. I'm like, I know I got this thing. And I'm like, you know what? Let me make a pivot and then go back towards high net worth individuals with my friends, talking through that just so I can get the first set of committed capital. Then going back to my friends who are like in these foundations, who run these foundations. Like all of those different pieces of the puzzles then starts to stack up, right? Because my ego could have been like, man, I've been on Series Z. Right. I done raised X amount of dollars and boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to go back there and I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm still build those relationships because relationships takes a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But it's about going back to your friends and the individuals and say, yo, like, instead of me trying to cash out at $3 million a pop, maybe I got to drop it down to 150,000. But those are the things that I'm saying, like for me, and I'm living this right now as we speak. There are things I got to put together, which is in a data room that for VCs, it's a folder of documents and questions that you got to answer. And it's extremely tedious and extremely hard.
Even a VC has a data room.
Yes. That's the thing. Like,
okay.
VCs have data rooms. We are going through the same things you guys go through. I think the disconnect sometimes is when VCs who've never been founders are going through it. There might be a little bit of a difference of perspective, but mostly because they can't connect the dots yet, because you know that there's some similarities, but you don't really know the similarities. Just like you haven't been a VC, you don't know the similarities until I'm just telling you right now. But we have a data room. We still have to schedule those meetings. We have those meetings where people just grill us and not give us any money.
Yeah.
But that's a part of the game. And you just got to have the tenacity. I have to have the tenacity, and I do have the tenacity to say, all right, bet. I'm not getting the traction I want here. I'm going to Tulsa. I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to LA. I'm going to New York. I'm going to Miami. I'm spinning the block. And the reality is, if you think anybody else is going to be doing that at the same level that I'm doing that, you got another thing coming. They just, all right, I'm going to wait till this cycle goes through. Nah, all right, cool, bet.
Nah, you can't. It sounds like you can't wait on it. Is there a particular season that investments are made? Because we hear at the end of the year that the money pretty much then dried up.
In June and July is pretty much when most capital is wrapped up. That's for everybody. That's venture, that's founders. Like, but this is the thing. there is too much money out here on this planet transacting just to be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go for that as law. That's not true. None of this is real. There's no such things as law. There's only consequences.
Yeah.
Like I could say right now, June and July, you ain't gonna be able to get no bag.
Yeah.
And you'll
Somebody
see right
gonna get
now
a
on
bag.
Instagram, Trade VC, they just dropped $30 million,
Yep.
and this one just closed
Yeah.
$50 million. Deals happen every day, Joe.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, you got to stop listening to other people. Like what I mean by that, you can hear what people are saying, and I appreciate the question, and there's some value that I add from my experience. But at the end of the day, I could say right now to y'all not gonna get no money right now in June and July. Absolutely ignore me. You know what I mean? No matter what people say about the market, like it doesn't matter. I'm not listening to any of that. I'm spinning the block because there's so much money out here for me to go get. And that's the same type of mindset you got to have as a founder. But again, I've been doing that work internally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like the only way you can drown it out is if you have a space to go where it's drowned out. But if you go into this room and you got these speakers of everybody blasting these speakers in your room, like you got to clean that house up and got to make sure you straight.
Even going back to like one of our meetings, and then you even came in and said it today, confidence has a big role that it has to play with the founder and with the VC, obviously. When I see you out in these rooms, kissing these babies and shaking hands, I promise you, you're going to run for a politician one day, president.
I hope not.
For sure. But the confidence, I remember one time I was getting ready to pitch. I had a meeting with Charles and the guys, and he was like, look, man, it's all about the confidence. You got to have that confidence. So when you say that here today and hearing being told no all the time, even from a VC standpoint, how do you shift your mind to be like, you know what? I'm going to go back again tomorrow and go to this conference and try this thing again.
Yeah, so the reality is if I told you that you had 47 no's before you got to your yes, and I gave you the blueprint, and I said you got 47 no's, you go and try and get through all those no's as fast as possible by the end of the week.
Facts.
So what I do, and this, I'm not saying people have to do this, like I keep track on a spreadsheet of my no's, right? Like, oh, I got this no, got this no, got this no, got this no. And most of the time it's not like direct like no's, especially in VC. Everybody wants to be like nice because they want to make sure they get back to some deals down the road. But I know it's a game of probability. All of this stuff is a game of probability because one, like I've solved a lot of the problems, like I said before, even within my deck. I have to have my financial models. I have to have my operating budget. Like all of the things that you guys have, I have to have myself. I have my data room. And when I have these conversations, it's a combination of my personal relationships and then the cold relationships. Usually the cold relationships are the ones that usually end up that way. But the ones that's the cheat code is when you've built these relationships with friends who are doing really well. And you're just like, look, bro, I'm going to be out in LA. I need to meet with this person and this person. They're like, I bet I got you. I'll be in town at this point. Can you make it during this time? And these are the things that I think, going back to how do you navigate the no's, is when you know that you have unlimited resource to accomplish whatever goal you need to accomplish, all you have is time and money, and money isn't real. So all you got is this play thing that over here that's very important. Don't get me wrong, because if you don't get it, like you still got to pay your bills. And then you have this thing of time, which you have full control over how you decide to use it. You marry it together, and it's like, I bet, say less. I am jumping on that flight tomorrow.
Facts.
You see what I'm saying? But that's the part where you got to change your mindset to understand is like, going back to that $1 billion, what are you willing to do when you know you can't fail? I will not fail. And I've been saying it publicly about what I'm doing because a lot of my friends are like, hey, Charles, you got to build in public. All right, you want to see me build in public? I'm building in public. I will not fail. And then when you see it happen, you can go back to the clips of me saying this from the Jump Street.
Yeah.
Like when Kanye was saying and Gary Vee and all these other people was saying it. Even some of my friends now that's putting stuff right now. It's like, I'm telling you right now, so you can go back and see the blueprint. But the reality is most people are not going to do it because their ambitions are not going to match their sacrifice. They're just not willing to put it down.
Man, you just said something a second ago though with the no's, right? Like if I knew I had 48 no's before I got to a yes, instantly my brain's like zeros and ones, right? Like I know no matter how many zeros I get, I'm gonna get a one.
Yes.
There's gonna be a one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now if I make that one, again, the higher the value of the one, maybe more zeros in front of it.
It might be, or you might
Or-
hit the lotto.
Or you may hit the lotto. But when you again, internal work, right? So if you dig internally, you go back to that base,
Yeah.
then you come back out stronger.
And that's the thing. When you go internally, this is the part where I tell people to, let's say someone took my advice and went internally. Don't go in there and lying to yourself.
Mhm.
That's the worst type of lie, right? If you lying to yourself and you capping to yourself like, oh, I'm made of this and doing these affirmations. Like the reality is you're not built like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh man, I'm gonna be $1 million and billionaire and blah, 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 flash, lease car here, lease home there. And nothing's wrong with any of that stuff. What I'm saying is deep down, only you know.
Mhm.
There's nobody, like, I could be sitting here having this bravado right now.
Yeah.
And nothing will, like, you'll be able to see it at some point whether I was lying or not. But the reality is this: only I know whether I'm built to that. So it's like, even if you said, Charles, you cap, and you was like, Charles, you cap, and actually, Charles, you're not gonna be able to get no money anyways. You might as well just rest it up June and July, get back on August, September, and December.
Yeah.
Like, why would I listen to you?
Facts.
Because the thing is, I'm not confined to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the whole world, if we really want to keep it a buck, the whole world is my oyster. But I haven't even tapped in the U.S. yet, really. I just got these little pockets right here and there and this, that, and the third. But that's the thing, man. Like, once y'all set y'all mindset and say, all right, there are unlimited combinations for me to get the bag, right? Once you set that in your mind, then you say, all right, I'm going to do absolutely everything I possibly can. If I meet somebody that's in this Atlanta Tech Week and they're like, yo, bro, you should pull up sometime. I bet. What about next week? What you got going? As if it's a regular meeting, as if I'm catching an Uber over to LA.
Yeah.
I bet. I'll drop over. Yeah, I'll come over there and stay. I don't even have a spot to stay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, I'll pull up. I'll rent a car and sleep in the car if I have to.
That's real.
When you break down those barriers of what is actually possible and you have a blank slate, and I learned this a lot being around my friends, like with Neil and those guys, and they will always have these different like social experiments where they would say, all right, write down all the things you want to do for the week and the month. If you could accomplish anything you wanted to do and you had a crystal ball and you could write on all the things you wanted to accomplish for this month, what would it be? You'll write it down on a sheet of paper. And then we'll all read it out amongst each other. And all right, go do it in an hour. 90% of that list was done, if not 100% of it.
Yeah.
The part that scares you, because you got to make a call with somebody that you think is somewhere where you can't get to them. You're like, nah, like I went and called the CEO of this company and I was like, hey, this is Charles. I'm trying to speak to Bob. Is he in? He's like, oh, yeah. Yo, Bob, can I get this meeting done? I need to do boom, 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 boom. It's done. Like I said, if you can unlock what's going on internally, there is no limitation.
Mm-hmm.
This concept of, oh man, I got to do this within the week or I got to do this within the month. That's not true. No. There's stuff right now I'm doing right now that took 2 weeks. I did on a Sunday.
Yeah.
There's this VC university thing. They were like, oh, you got to have this done by the end of the month. I did it all on Sunday.
Boom. Done.
But the reality is you have to have that type of mindset. Because I was like, man, dang, it's going to be a lot. I just doubled the speed of it and ran through it and got the exact same content. But that's the part I'm saying for the founders and the entrepreneurs that are looking to make things happen. And even for us that's going on, that's talking amongst each other, we got to recognize like there is no barrier to entry. The door's already been open.
Yeah.
You've literally stopped yourself at any point to keep yourself from doing it. So like, let's dream big. Let's go for the gusto and make this stuff happen.
Listen, Charles dropping some jewels. He has decided to stick around for Cap or No Cap. Rob, what you think about that, bro?
I think it's time.
I think it's time.
Let's do it.
Cap or No Cap, Charles. You need a VC investment to be successful. Cap or No Cap?
That's cap.
Why?
I mean, you got examples of people doing it without venture capital. 2, at the end of the day, you can get debt, you can get friends and family, you can get it out the mud yourself. So that's why I say it's cap.
Okay.
Great cap.
Cap or no cap, relationships are not important.
That's cap. They're definitely important, like 100%. The ultimate currency is people. So definitely cap.
Yeah. Atlanta is becoming the next Silicon Valley. You know we got to ask that question. Cap or no cap?
I say that's cap. I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Atlanta is going to be bigger and better than what Silicon Valley is. The capital piece that's going to come into play is going to be important. That's good. Cool. Great. The cultural relevance on being able to, one, be a force multiplier on any investment you do. And when I'm going to tell you what I mean by that after I finish my statement. You be a force multiplier on any investment that you do. And you can mitigate risk almost on any investment that you can do. I'm going to tell you what those two things are and why that's going to be bigger than Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, they were successful. Have you guys read the book, The Power Law? So anyone who wants to learn about like Silicon Valley, Power Law is a really good book about it. It's a few glimpses on like how a group of friends decided to make these different kingmakers and started to back these people where we thought, oh man, they just popped out as these unicorns. No, they were a group of people that decided that this company will not fail because of money. And then they just got a bunch of shots at bat. It's like, strike, home run. Yeah. But a lot of these founders were like rebels and disruptors. So if you give a rebel and disruptor unlimited cash, something gonna happen. Something gonna shake. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But going back to the Atlanta piece is, I think we're forming that part of the culture. People are moving here with capital because of that culture. And quite frankly, Atlanta, from music to movies, that influence, like you can move the mob however you want to move them with that. And Jay-Z is a big example of being able to do that, from showing us like what he's done with food and beverage, showing what he's done when he's owned his own clubs, showing what he's done with real estate, now showing what he's done in venture capital. Like all of those things kind of show me that Atlanta's not going to be the next Silicon Valley. Atlanta's going to be bigger than that. There's going to be the new Atlanta where people are going to say, oh, who's going to be the next Atlanta? Now, how long that's going to be, I don't know. We got to get our stuff in order to be able to make that happen and stop having so many silos and fighting amongst each other on who's going to be the chief.
Absolutely. One thing that we always ask, we ask that question, and the answers vary. And your answer as it being its own, not Silicon Valley, but it's going to be something else. Yeah. Great answer.
Even now, the Atlanta model is different than Silicon Valley. Like the Atlanta model is to get a little bit of money at the front end and then bootstrap it out. Yeah. That's what you've seen with MailChimp. You've seen that with Calendly. But a lot of times, Atlanta right now, how it moves is like you just get a little bit right now, get you that traction, and you just constantly build from there.
That's it.
Okay. Cap or no cap? You don't need community to be successful as a startup.
That's cap. At the end of the day, community could be two people, right? There's this one stand-up, I forget his name, but he said, you give me 3 people that's committed, I could take over the whole country. And I believe that. I mean, you get some folks that's backing you with the same vision, and you guys in lockstep, and you're not worried about what other people think, and you execute, ain't nobody gonna stop you. Get you a small group of folks that's committed, that will not be denied, and it's not limited by anyone's perspective or thoughts or expertise, and go for it.
Nice. So the last cap or no cap question. Cap or no cap, 1888 Ventures will be the next biggest venture capital firm next to Andreessen Horowitz. Cap or no cap?
Oh, man. No cap, what I'm saying.
That's good.
I ain't worried about none of that.
Come on now.
Nah, but I will say that much respect to what Andreessen and other firms that have gone before me that have built, because quite frankly, they are the blueprint. They are the reason why someone like myself can understand and see, I have a lot of friends at A16Z, all of them doing the massive work for the culture, with the culture fund that they're doing over there. So big shout out to them. So no shade at all. It's just the competitor in me saying that by all means, that's what we're going for. That's the goal. So I'm not in this for participation prizes, and I'm not in this for,
Talk.
second place or anything like that. At the end of the day, if you're going to do it, you might as well go for the big. And that doesn't necessarily mean for everyone. For me and for my family, and I consider y'all family,
Word.
is that at the end of the day, if I can do it and I can show you how to do it and y'all can be along with me, the sky's the limit.
No cap to that. Yo, Charles, he's survived cap or no cap. Before we get out of here, man, once again, thank you for coming to be a guest on our show.
Yes,
Like I
sir.
said, the first of its kind. What inspires you, man, and what books do you read to keep going?
Things like this, man, this is what inspires me. Like being able to look at my friends in the eyes and then know what y'all been through and what y'all going through, and then be able to share these moments and interactions with y'all and know like that something clicked. And I say this all the time. It's like my goal isn't to motivate you, it's to help you find your discipline and exploit it. Like if there is at any point that you may feel hype because that's just what the energy is we could be going through, it's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like in that moment, there has to be that sober mindset to say, all right, what are the key things that I need to do right now to ensure that I get to this long-term goal? Like, what is it that I got to do? Like for me, like right now I'm doing 2-a-days, like working out, because my mind is so like trashed out with so much stuff that I got to break my body down and let it know, like, listen, I'm in control of this whole thing. So that's what motivates me, being able to do cool stuff like this with my brothers and doing cool things with friends. Books, man, so it's funny because I never thought I would be like some of the people that I hear, like not motivational speakers, but like Naval Ravikant. I've recently been reading like the same books over and over. Once you've read so many books,
Yeah.
like I was like, man, nah, I'm gonna keep reading the newness. But man, The Alchemist is one really good book.
Absolutely.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
The 48 Laws of Power. That's another really good book, and it just talks about like the dynamics of different power structures. This one this is more like the philosophy mind-changing book, is Sapiens. I'll just give you like one of the key things that came out of it was, so essentially as sapiens, they're just, first they go through like the iterations of like our species and things like that. And now we're in the modern world on how we move sapiens. It's through these social constructs that influence people. So like capital, religion, politics.
Yeah.
Those three things move you in different ways. You have politics that'll move you one way and cause you to move a certain way. And then you have religion that'll move you a certain way. And then you have like capital that kind of separates people with social class and things like that. At the end of the day, when we blend and rise above that social construct, we begin to understand that we're all one. And then we begin to think of bigger and better ideas to be better human beings. And that's through technology that's going to give us that, because we're innovative and things like that. And I think that's where the cusp is when it comes to that. So How to Win Friends and Influence People, 48 Laws of Power, Sapiens, and Robert Cialdini, Influence. Those are like the 4 books I think are probably one of the most transformational when it comes to this journey as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as an investor. It kind of gives you that mindset to go off that. And then I'll give my personal one, because that's the question you asked. It's a book by Naval Ravikant. It's called The Almanac of Naval. And Naval Ravikant, for those who don't know, he started AngelList. He's the founder of AngelList.
Okay.
So one of the things he says, before I can teach you to be a philosopher, first I have to make you rich. And I'll just leave that there. And that's my goal as well.
Man.
Before I can be a philosopher, I want to make you rich.
What do you want to leave the people with before we get up out of here?
Man, two things. One, I'm going to say, with you guys are inspirational. Like, don't take for granted what y'all have and built. Like, think without limits. Like, where can you guys go with this? And from corporate sponsors to whatever, you guys can take it so far with the type of quality of people you have at your fingertips that you can bring here. And I say, break the barriers. Don't just be limited to what you think people may want to see. Like, any and everybody, from the Alleys to the David Cummings to the Ryan Wilsons to the Jay Baileys. Like, get everybody up in
For
here.
sure.
You see what I'm saying? That's one. Leaving with, I definitely know a lot of people want to try and figure out ways to stay in contact or be in connection with me.
Definitely.
I would say 1888 Ventures on Twitter. Like, follow me there. I'm definitely dropping a lot of gems. One, through my process as I get ready to build this fund. There's certain things I can and can't say just from an SEC standpoint, but a lot of stuff that I do drop is connected to like life journey stuff that we're talking about is active. So 1888 Ventures there. A lot of these videos that you see, like I do a lot of different things, and I cut that up through TikTok on 1888 Ventures. That's the way to stay in contact with me, and that's it.
Word up. Rob, what you want to leave the people with, man? Tell them where we can get this Shotmakers League challenge,
you already know,
bro.
shotmakersleague.com.
Let's go.
Shotmakers League, everything that you can possibly find me on. Yeah, man, if you want to connect business-wise, Robert Foster on LinkedIn, robertfoster@shotmakersleague.com is the email.
Okay. Well, you know where you all can find us. NoCapTable@gmail.com. I'm Omari. You can find me Omari Man on LinkedIn. Rush the Line. We're going under a little bit of rebrand right now, but it's okay. We're gonna get there in the next couple of weeks. I want to leave everybody with and reiterating what Charles said was relationships. It's all about relationships. Make sure you take care of those relationships, nurture those relationships. All right, y'all, we getting ready to get up out of here. We'll see y'all next time on No Cap Table, where we discuss business, entrepreneurship, and the startup lifestyle. Peace out.